Garrett was a NASA astronaut. Here he is.
Hi guys.
Yay!
You guys all here for the tweet up?
Yes, sir.
So I'll talk just a little about our facilities. I'll keep it short, and then Garrett can talk about the work he's doing, which is really cool. So all of you, right now you are at that building right there is the SpaceX Launch Control Center. So you know NASA has the Launch Control Center at KSC and Mission Control in Houston at Johnson Space Center. SpaceX has our Launch Control Center right here, and our Mission Control Center is at our headquarters in Hawthorne, California. SpaceX is scheduled to, well, I guess, SpaceX has the Falcon 9 rocket. The Falcon 9 has launched successfully twice. On the second mission, on December 8th last year, the Dragon space capsule, which is behind you, was launched from the Cape Canaveral, orbited the Earth almost 2 times, and landed in the Pacific Ocean. That made us the very first private company to launch, orbit, and recover from orbit a spacecraft. Only 5 countries in the European Space Station have done that before us. Now with the end of the shuttle program, SpaceX is going to start carrying cargo to and from the International Space Station for NASA. We have a $1.6 billion contract for 12 missions. At the end of this year, we're going to do our last test flight where the next Dragon space capsule is going to go up, and hopefully NASA will allow us to berth with the International Space Station before we start all of these cargo flights going up. In April of this year, NASA gave us a contract for $75 million to upgrade the Dragon capsule so that it could carry astronauts with a really cool launch abort system. That's what Garrett is working on. The only other thing I would mention is that we also have a lot of commercial customers. So SpaceX launches a lot of telecommunication satellites for all kinds of buyers. We're bringing back launches to the United States. A lot of the launch business has left the United States, the commercial launch business, in recent years because prices have been really high. And that includes, just so you know, it's not a side business, that includes a $492 million contract with Iridium, the satellite phone maker, to launch their next generation of satellites. That $492 million contract for Iridium is the largest single commercial launch deal ever signed. So with that, if you have more questions about SpaceX, feel free to ask me. If you have questions about that Dragon in there, I was here for launch and I met it on the dock in California when it came back. So if you want to talk about what is this burn mark, what is this big hole, can I go inside? No, you can't. Right. I'm happy to answer all of those questions, and Garrett will talk to you about carrying astronauts.
Thanks. So my name's Garrett. I was a NASA astronaut 4 months ago. And I left NASA and came to work at SpaceX. And on my first day in the job, Elon asked me if I would mind being the project manager for CC Dev 2. Does anybody know what CC Dev 2 is? Yeah. Oh wow, you guys, that's awesome.
So that's one.
No, but that's awesome. CC Dev 2 is a program with it's a project run by the Commercial Crew office here at KSC. And what it's really all about is trying to get a commercial company ready and able to carry people into space. And so we got a good head start because we've got the Falcon 9 rocket and the Dragon capsule, which were designed from the very beginning to carry people. And designed in very technical ways to carry people. For example, the factor of safety that was designed into the Falcon 9 rocket was 1.4 for structural elements, and you don't have to do that to just launch a satellite. You can actually use a much smaller factor of safety and save money, but we didn't because we want to carry people. The number of the redundancy in the avionics, we plan to have 3 strings of avionics so that the vehicle can be human rated. Again, you don't need that to carry satellites.
And that means backup systems. Redundancy means if the first system fails, you have a second and a third.
So, right. So if you look also at the Dragon capsule, you'll see it's got windows. I never met any cargo that needed to look out the window. So there's lots of things we've been doing from very, very beginning, which makes my job really easy. Because what my job is to convert this cargo ship into a ship capable of carrying people. And the biggest thing that's missing that people tend to like is a launch abort system. So the ability to get away from the booster rocket if something's happening bad on ascent. And just like in the old days when they had that tower on top, where that would pull the capsule away if the Saturn V was having a problem, we're going to do the same thing, except that we're going to do it in a much better way. What we're going to do is we're going to mount those engines on the side of the capsule, so they push the capsule away rather than a tractor system that pulls the capsule away. And the nice thing about that is you can use it again. You don't throw it away. Those towers, after a couple minutes, whether it's on the Soyuz rocket or on the Saturn V or the Mercury, those towers have to be, once you get outside of the thick air, you have to jettison those towers. And so jettisoning those towers is kind of like using your ejection seat in your airplane every single flight. It has to go right. If that tower doesn't come off, then you're having a very, very bad day inside that capsule. So the beautiful thing about the launch abort system we're designing is you don't need to have it go right every single time, but it's there if you need it. And you can reuse it, and you carry it with you the whole time so that you have the ability to do an abort all the way until you're in orbit. Even Apollo didn't have that. And then the other thing is it has the ability, the amount of thrust you need and the control systems you need to do that also are the same kind of things you need to land propulsively. What I mean by that is, you guys know how the lunar module landed on the moon? It used a little retro rocket and it kind of came like that. Don't quote me on that.
Do that again.
That's the technical term, yeah. So we're going to be able to do the same thing here on Earth using the engines that we would have used for an abort. If you're having a nice flight up and everything's going well, you can use those same engines to land, and then you can take this Dragon and land it like on an area of a helipad, which will make a nice gentle return to Earth. So that's the main focus of what we're doing now, but we're also looking at all the other things you need for people, like life support systems. People like, less carbon dioxide, more oxygen in their air. People like something to eat, and people also like seats. They like spacesuits. People like the ability to control the spacecraft. So that's all the other things that we're working on right now concurrently with the launch abort system, and that's what keeps me busy when I'm not at Tweetups. So, so with that, that's kind of an overview of what I'm doing, and I'd be happy to take any questions you got.
In terms of crew, what do you guys see the capacity as being once the retrofits and changes have been?
7. We plan to put 7 people in there.
More than either you or I.
Yeah, so 7 is the same crew complement that's currently on this shuttle. Soyuz carries 3, but there's a lot less room inside the Soyuz. So we're confident we can get 7 inside there.
What about the payload when you had 7?
The only additional payload we plan to have, we're required for the draft requirements that NASA has to carry 100 kilograms of cargo. And so that we will plan to have that in addition to the 7 people. You can always take people out and put cargo in.
So as a shuttle replacement, then you'd have to send this up several times to do the same job. It seems like at one shuttle.
Well, yes, to carry the people, to replace that part of the shuttle job, it's equivalent. To carry cargo, we'll still be sending cargo dragons up without any people in it at all, and on automatic flight patterns that are grappled in berth. So that will continue to supply the station with logistics. So we're going to separate out the cargo and the people. That 100 kilograms is just what the station program wants, so that you can do, for example, those crew members coming up and the crew members coming down. They want to bring 100 kilograms of samples with them for science, and that needs to come with the people. So that's why they want that capability. But yeah, it's really designed to carry people and cargo in 2 separate missions.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What are the possibilities of plan to make the pusher escape system also a propulsive landing system?
What are the possibilities?
That's
Yeah,
the plan.
are you guys doing that? Are you designing it to have that capability
Absolutely.
from the beginning, or evolve to that?
Now, we're designing the system to be capable of doing that from the very beginning. However, we're giving NASA the option. If they're more comfortable landing under parachutes, it can do that. So NASA has the option to say, which they want for their astronauts. But we're designing from the very beginning to be able to do that, because we know, my boss is a very visionary guy. He doesn't view the sky as a limit. He doesn't view the Earth as a limit. So, the point is, if we can land this thing propulsively on Earth, we can land it propulsively on the Moon, we can land it propulsively on Mars, some of the moons of Saturn. There's very few places this can't go.
Wow.
Yep.
Are there any plans to put crews on the Falcon Heavy to send them beyond Earth orbit?
That's certainly a possibility. Right now, the Falcon Heavy is very perceptive. The Falcon Heavy is essentially 3 Falcon 9s. So the human rating qualities of the Falcon 9 thus carry over to the Falcon Heavy, and so the possibility certainly exists to put a Dragon on top of a Falcon Heavy if you're looking to go outside of low Earth orbit.
And just to jump in, Elon's goal is to make it possible for man to live on other planets. There's not a decision that gets made in this company as we design our vehicles that doesn't keep in mind what are our long-term goals. So we designed the Falcon 9 and Dragon that we're going to have carry cargo to carry astronauts. The Falcon Heavy will be thinking about how do we carry astronauts and how do we go further and how do we push to do more.
So you're designing the Dragon to work on both the Dragon Heavy and the regular Dragon.
Sure, yeah. It'd definitely be capable of putting it on the Falcon 9 or the Falcon Heavy.
NASA's also working on a next generation capsule. Do you see yourself as a competition with that program, or are they for different tasks?
We don't really view it as competition. We're talking about some pretty grandiose plans, but our near-term focus is getting NASA astronauts to the space station. And so the decision made by the administration and by NASA and by Congress as well is to use what was the Orion is now the MPCV as a lifeboat capability and as an exploration vehicle. So basically, it's not intended to put that thing on any human-carrying rocket and bring people up. So, for example, the work on the launch abort system is they were working on that, but there's no intention to use that. So you'll launch it without that and have it up there as a lifeboat only. So in that sense, no. What the mission we're designing this for is a different mission. Yeah.
So best case scenario, when is the expectation timeline-wise that you guys will start carrying up tourists on a regular basis? Every other week, every other month. Best case scenario.
We'll take a quick shot at it. It's first of all, our focus right now is flying not necessarily the tourist market, but flying NASA astronauts to the space station, fulfilling that need, and that's what we're getting paid to do by NASA. So this funding they're giving, the funding that we're getting from NASA is not intended to take tourists for a ride. So that's the first part of it. But eventually, once the capability exists, certainly there are other markets, and to address that, I'll turn it over to Christian.
So our long-term goal, Elon's long-term goal as he founded the company, is to make space travel more accessible to everybody. So, one of the things that we're trying to do, and it's a long-term goal because everybody else says it's impossible, or a lot of people do, is we want to make our whole system reusable. Right now, a rocket goes up, spacecraft takes off, the rocket is gone for liquid-fueled rockets like we have. We want to do everything we can to make it more affordable, safer, and more reliable, so that long-term we can make space transportation more accessible. I would say any answer we gave you would be aspirational. We hope soon, but we're going to do the most we can do.
What kind of reaction have we gotten from the Russians on this project?
Well, nothing directly because we don't work with the Russians. They're not our customer. There was some. All I could share with you is what I read in the press because they don't talk to us and we don't talk to them. But in the press, they were complaining a little bit about having a say about the Dragon coming to the space station. Our response was we're meeting every single one of NASA's safety requirements and performance requirements. If the Russians have an issue with how NASA set their safety requirements, they need to talk. But that's really an issue between Roscosmos and NASA. We don't play in that.
Question.
But when people are asking about competition, I'll just expand a little bit on that. About the MPCV, and we don't view a competition there, but we do view, to a certain extent, competition with the Soyuz. Because once the shuttle stops flying, hopefully Friday will be a good launch, but it will be the last launch. And after that, the only way for NASA astronauts to get to the space station is on the Soyuz. The price of that keeps going up. It's the last bill we got was $63 million a seat. So that's our competition, and that's what we hope to do is stop paying $63 million of U.S. taxpayer money to the Russians for a seat, and instead spend it on getting the Dragon ready to go.
And when will you be ready to do that?
We think 3 years. Technically, as far as if we get full support from NASA, we can be ready to go 3 years from now.
And your competition?
That's a question for them.
Well,
we want big class.
Seasoned, yes. On the structure and design, why did SpaceX go with a capsule format instead of something derived from the lifting body technology or structures similar to the
capsules are again, a lot of our safety. It's difficult to be cost effective and safe if you try to do everything, right? And that's a lesson kind of learned from the shuttle. The shuttle does everything. It's a magnificent vehicle, but to do everything is very complicated. And that complexity adds a lot of cost. It costs $200 million a month to fly a shuttle. From a blank piece of paper to the first flight, it costs $300 million to design the Falcon 9. So just for comparison's sake. So complexity adds cost. It also reduces safety. In order to meet all the requirements and to do everything for everyone, the shuttle you had to make the design decision to mount the shuttle on the side of the tank. And that was a direct contributor to what happened to Columbia and an indirect contributor to the disaster of Challenger as well. So you operate closer to the edges of the envelope when you try to do everything. The decision to go with a capsule instead was made because that allows you to be cost effective at the same time safer. The capsule, and the Soyuz is a good example of how robust a capsule can be. You can have major failures. When I was on the space station, my commander, Peggy Whitson, came home with her crew on the Soyuz. I waved goodbye. I took a picture of her out the window, and they had a major problem a couple hours later when they were re-entering. One of the bolts didn't fire and separate. Two of the modules were stuck together that were supposed to separate when they entered the air. And that thing started really heating up. A winged vehicle would have been doomed. But the capsule was so robust that eventually the heat of re-entry kind of melted away the interface. And the capsule was robust enough to right itself up, and with its inherent stability, survive. And Peggy is now the chief of the astronaut office, and I got to hang out with her when I got back, which was really nice. So you can see that a capsule it just allows you to do that. It allows you to have a simpler design, which is cost effective and safe.
Will you go into space again?
Possibly. I'm not ruling anything out or anything, and that's not why I took this job. Peggy was nice enough to tell me that she'd be happy to let me fly again. I didn't break anything real expensive the first 2 times I was up there, so she was happy to let me have another crack. So if my goal was to fly in space, I should have probably stayed where I was. But I chose to do this because I viewed it as the greater challenge and also the opportunity to do greater good.
That brings up the question then, have you guys already hired experimental test pilots?
We have one working for us. It's my boss, Ken Barasox, who's a former shuttle commander and former Navy test pilot. But no, we're not. We still have to work out exactly. We're still years away from coming up with the actual test plan and figuring out what we need in the crew. And for that matter, if the crew is going to be a SpaceX crew, or is it going to be a NASA crew? Or is it going to be some kind of joint test team like is often done for military aircraft? So the answer is no.
But, so there is time to get your training and apply.
That's right.
So what do you need? What will you accept as
Awesome. When you ask Elon Musk what he looks for in a candidate, he says awesome.
That's a good answer.
Well, you look at the what the Mercury 7 had to go through, and sitting at over at the visitor center today, like I couldn't fit in the Gemini or the Mercury capsules because you had to be under 5'10" and do all these crazy, ridiculous tests which were depicted in the right stuff. Just curious, going off this question, like, what do you need a X number of flight hours or?
Well, first of all, let me say that our intention when we design the interior of the Dragon is to be able to fit the current size range of the astronaut office in factory and to meet the anthropomorphic requirements that NASA gives us. So that means that you don't have to be as short as me to ride. And
if you ask our engineers how many astronauts could it carry, they'll say, well, 9 really little ones.
Right. But
And 5 massive
NASA has their own requirements. They're not going to tell their bigger guys, sorry, you got to find new work. So we got to find a way to make it work for even some of the biggest people to get inside. So that's first. And then as far as the requirements, for basically our customers predominantly will be NASA astronauts. So really, it will be their training and their experience that we'll be leveraging as far as crew members go.
Follow up. Just wondering, since you have Richard Branson, who bought out the rights to the forget the name of it, but the one spacecraft that Spaceship One that won the X Prize. Do you view? So you really don't view them at being in the commercial sector as any real competition?
They're really doing something completely different from what we're trying to do. So their vehicle is a suborbital vehicle, so there's no way you can get to the space station with their vehicle. It goes up and it comes down, so that is something that the Dragon is designed to be orbital, so it can get into orbit and then catch up and rendezvous and dock with the space station. And secondly, they're targeting that tourist market. So they're charging people for rides, and that's really what they're all about. What we're trying to do is really provide a vehicle for professionals going to the space station. Yep.
How does the processing power that we have now change what we're able to do versus what Apollo could do back then?
Yeah, boy, the avionics are probably the biggest difference between now and then. And so that allows you to do a lot of things. First of all, it allows a much better crew interface. You can have much better displays. You can have, even compared to the shuttle, you can have color graphical displays as opposed to monochromatic text. It's really quite nice. You can have a moving map. It's really cool stuff like that. And you can even, the guys in the back seat can play video games. So yeah, processing power. Obviously, what that also allows you to do is operate with a smaller mass and power budget and still get the same job done. So that's a big advantage. And it allows for much greater automation. The shuttle, you don't have to go back as far as Apollo to see the limits of processing power and the impact on operations in spacecraft. If you look at the shuttle, it's very little automation. It relies on a tremendous amount of redundancy to deal with failures, but anything beyond a single failure, it has no ability to reconfigure the systems to protect for the next failure. And that's really the crew's job in the space shuttle, is on the flight deck. It's not doing anything for that first failure. It's reconfiguring the system to optimize to protect against the next failure. That's really pretty much all of our procedures are geared towards that. Your car does that, okay, by itself automatically. If you have a failure of a certain sensor in your fuel injection, like say that PPO2 sensor, it has backup algorithms that uses other sensors to set the timing on your car. It's smart enough to do that. It's more advanced in that regard than the space shuttle. So that's the big difference in processing power.
Going off of that, you were talking about multiple redundancies in the system for safety. How many of those are software, and then how many of those are hardware? Not saying that you're running Windows.
Well, the redundancy comes from multiple processors. We have 3 flight computers, each running their own. Most of the software, safety in the software comes from the nice thing about software is you can test the heck out of it. So most of your safety comes from that.